Morning. Oh, let's give it a few minutes and let people make their way in. If I can get a thumbs up in the chat and let me know that the audio is all right, then I can stop being anxious about it. Because really, that's how everyone who doesn't regularly live stream feels about it. Okay, cool. Excellent. And of course, the next order of business, as every week, do you have your coffee? Coffee is an absolute must. Continue to be anxious. I will not continue to be anxious if I can prevent it. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody that is making their way into the stream. Thanks for spending the weekend with me again. I really do appreciate it. It's something I look forward to every week doing the premieres on videos, mainly because we just continue to create this great little community. Um, so much so that when someone can't make it, everybody asks, "Where is that person?" For example, this morning, where is Susan? I think she's actually doing a haunt meeting this morning. They are building a big display for the upcoming Midsummer Scream Halloween convention here in the LA area. That's going to be, I think, taking up her weekends for a while. The convention's not until August, so I imagine it'll be kind of down to the wire. 3 cups of coffee and a cup of cocoa. It must be freezing. I think for Bart, who doesn't drink coffee, you can stay. You've proven yourself. Thank you to everybody on the congratulations for doing this for 5 years. Not at all where I thought I would be, but here we are. Okay, so I guess I can start at the beginning. 5 years ago, on May 16th, actually, so it was technically yesterday, but I'm just going with Saturday because that's kind of how it worked out. And truth be told, May 16th of 2020 may not actually have even been a Saturday. Um, I'm sure someone in the chat can verify this for me because it may have just been a midweek thing where I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put together a video and put it out. And the first video, where's my phone? The first video that I released, and I had to look it up because I actually didn't remember, was how to make a rusted iron fence, which I think is crazy. It's yeah. Here's the here's the thumbnail, and for something that I didn't really think would do anything, and was just a way to waste some time and kind of not think about all of the craziness that was happening in the world at the time. I did not think that 5 years later I would still be making videos and that people would be watching them. I mean, you can make all the videos you want. Excuse me. But yeah, there's been a lot of videos since then. Um, I think there's 261 in total, which is nuts. Because I don't think I've done 261 of anything. Um, and while I know initially I thought I would just be making Halloween videos, much to my surprise, my love of Halloween could not withstand the rigors of making a video about Halloween every week for a year without feeling some level of burnout. And so I switched and started doing other stuff. as most of you know, mainly Star Wars, sometimes pop culture related stuff, but all kind of the films and TV shows that I enjoyed growing up. Because, what is the point in getting older if you can't be nostalgic about the things of your youth? So it's, yeah, it's been very interesting to get here. I think most people assume that when you start making videos, that the trajectory um, happens very quickly, and that I don't know, that it's like, all you need is one video to do well, and then you're off to the races. And that's not actually true. It hasn't been my experience, but I also think that to a certain degree, having sort of a slower trajectory has been better, mainly because community, which is, I think, one of the most important things that I was missing at the time when I started making videos. Um, but viral success kind of gets you a big bump right at the beginning, but that doesn't necessarily sustain. And thankfully, the people who've found my videos and have subscribed to the channel and watched the videos weekly, or however often they do, those people continue to come back over and over again, and that is the thing that like helps to kind of motivate me to continue making videos. So to those of you who show up every week, know that I cannot express how grateful I am for you for just being a part of the community and supporting these little videos that I make. And for the people that are seasonal, I have a lot of love for you guys too, because I know that for a lot of you, Halloween is a hobby, and you kind of don't start thinking about it until about this time of the year, maybe a little bit later. And once November 1st rolls around, for a lot of you, it's like switch over to Christmas, or you're just exhausted from months of preparing. So I get it. Um, but I appreciate you all. And I thank you for coming along with me on this journey. Um, okay, so May 16th, 2020 was a Saturday. Surprise. Um, I had I'd asked people on Instagram to send over some questions, and I will kind of get to those a little bit later. I also have a few questions, I'm sure, in the chat. So I'm going to take a quick look and see what we got. Greetings from Denmark. You might actually be the first person who has identified themselves as being from Denmark. Not to say that it's like a good or bad thing, but welcome. Thank you for watching my videos in Denmark. Is Denmark a hotbed for Halloween decorating? Or if you're not a Halloween person, is there a lot of like Star Wars room building, prop making and stuff going on in Denmark? Let me know in the chat. Let's rewind to the top. Where do I see myself in 5 years? Well, to start with, I didn't see myself here in 5 years, so I'm probably the worst person to ask that question to. I mean, the reality of the situation is I would love to be able to continue doing this 5 years from now. Um, I think a lot of things would have to change in order for that to like really make sense. Not that I'm planning on quitting anytime soon, but I think creator economy is sort of constantly evolving, and as everything that's going on in the world around business is sort of in flux. People aren't spending their money marketing in the same way that they used to. So I've mentioned this in plenty of other live streams, but I'll mention it again. So the way that all this works is, it's sponsored content, or materials or equipment is provided for a video. Um, and then there's Patreon and affiliate programs and commission work, and all those things have to sort of work together in order for all of this to work. If those other things didn't happen, the YouTube videos likely would not be happening. And YouTube, in the mix of all of these things, is sort of the lowest money earner. And so, because businesses are kind of in flux with things that are going on with tariffs and just general instability in the market. They're not spending their marketing dollars with smaller creators like they used to. They're going with really targeted people, um, or going more to traditional advertising. And so, if that doesn't sort of stabilize and kind of return to where it was at, I think a lot of people who make videos are going to need new ways to make a living off of this. Um, because sponsored placements really do kind of make the world go round. So, fun little bit of math about how all this YouTube stuff works. So, um, and this is, of course, as of today. This could all change tomorrow. The average monetized YouTube channel makes, or I should say, earns roughly $18 to $20. Or let me rephrase: YouTube can sell advertisements on YouTube videos at roughly $18 to $20 per thousand views. That is the price that they are setting for businesses that want to advertise in YouTube videos. The content creators get roughly half of that. So for every thousand views, you're getting like between $7 and $10, let's say. So even if I did 40,000 views on a video, it's really not like having a full-time job. You'd have to have hundreds of thousands of views for it to actually make it equal a regular like 9 to 5 paycheck. When sponsors come in, they can kind of offset that by whatever fee you choose to charge them, or whether it's in trade with equipment, etc. Anyways, so if those things don't kind of stabilize and get back to normal, making videos 5 years from now is probably not going to be on the table. But I digress. Um, I'd love to be working in a creative atmosphere of some type, whether that's like me working for a studio, being in a props department, um, working in theater. Like I'm open to wherever the force is pushing me. So, it's gotten me here, and who knows where the next 5 years will go. Let's see. The silence, gotta love it. Let's see. Whoops, I just jumped forward. Okay. All right. So no more questions in chat. I will go to the questions from Instagram. Um, the first one being, what cameras do I use? Uh, iPhone is always good to have anytime I'm doing stabilized um, videos. Like at the end of the video where I do sort of the glamour shot of the whole project. And this is my trick to doing it, because I don't use like a steady cam or anything like that, is I'll put it in slow-mo mode on the uh, Photos app, and we'll shoot video in slow-mo very quickly. And then when it gets slowed down and played back at near normal speed, it looks much more smooth. For everything else, I shoot on a Sony FX30. Okay. Sparks the Fae wants to know, how do you price commissions? This is this must be on a lot of people's minds this week, because you're the second person that's asked me about it. Commissions are an interesting thing, but essentially the way that it works out for me is that I think about what I'd like to make per hour, so what my own perceived value is, plus the cost of materials, plus 25%. And the reason that I tack on the 25% is because I always think that it will take me less time than it actually does to complete a project. And the 25% is the buffer to make up for my bad math. So that's kind of where I sort of base commissions. I also sort of look at it more organically, like, what is this thing? How much actual hands-on time will I have? And so things like that can change. But if I were to say, make a helmet, or if I was going to, make a lightsaber or something, if it wasn't a super defined project and there was a bit of research and development that had to go on, I would consider all of those things. And while we're talking about it, consider every email that you respond to, every phone call that you might take, every Zoom meeting. All those things are your time, and they should be a consideration when you are pricing your work. Hopefully that is helpful. Um, Emerald Queen in chat wants to know, would you be willing to consider helping people with costume props? I guess it depends. I mean, props, absolutely. Costumes, I'm not super versed in, but I'm always happy to brainstorm with people, and hopefully, somewhere in the mix will come an answer. Let's see. Del Merific wanted to know, have I come across a good outdoor projector to use for haunted mansion singing busts? Huh. And the short answer is no. I don't. It's not something I've spent a lot of time investigating. I will say that the internal projected bust that I used for a monument I did last year, I think it was. Uh, those are great. They're not super bright, but the fact that everything is inside of the head and relatively protected from the elements, it was a great option. And I didn't find them to be terribly expensive. I think they were $30 to $40 a piece, which I know if you're doing, what is it, 5 or 6 busts in the Haunted Mansion, can get pricey. But you also have to think about, you know, 10 years ago, the cost of a projector, it was a monster sized machine. And you would look into it for like $600, $400, like depending on what it was. So, the cost of the technology has dropped considerably, and the secondhand market is always a good option. Um, my buddy Zach from the Toil and Trouble channel here on YouTube made a great video about how he turned a tombstone, and actually I did kind of a similar take on it as well after seeing his video about using a tombstone as a way to make a housing for a projector. That's probably your best option because then you can use whatever projector you want, and you can, keep it out of the elements. Generally speaking, the downside with any projector though is that you won't want to leave it outside regardless of how well it's protected. I just don't see that as a really viable long-term solution. Um, and so that's something to consider. When you move, are you going to rebuild a Halloween display in the same haunted cemetery theme, or are you going to go in a different direction? Huh. I mean, my gut is to go the same sort of traditional haunted cemetery. I think that's just it's the style of Halloween that I'm most interested in, and I think gives me the most creative leeway. Um, Theming, I think, is tough, uh, but I guess the flip side to that coin is that it definitely gives you a direction to really point your energies at. So it's like, if you knew that you were going to do a Beetlejuice themed haunt, well, then you have all of your source material. Like it's in one tidy little package, or if you include the new movie, then it's in two tidy little packages, and and that would help really determine what the look of the haunt is. I think for me, what makes our haunt so fun is that as we've traveled and as I've seen different parts of the country and different parts outside of the United States, is that I kind of take a little bit of everything from those experiences and can pull it into the cemetery. Like some of the best cemetery stuff I've seen was in London. Um, and prior to that would have been, anywhere along the East Coast, just because it's the oldest. And admittedly, California doesn't do your traditional above ground, headstones and things like that. It's just not sort of the trend in funerary practice here. um, and so it wasn't until I was able to actually leave California to see what other places were doing that really helped to inspire it. So I think because of that, it's a lot more freeing creatively. And, it's always great to just be out somewhere. We kind of always make it a point to stop and see at least one cemetery if we're traveling and, take a couple of pictures. And those things, it may not be a one-to-one replica of the thing that I've photographed, but there might be an element of that that I think would work with something else. So it's a bit more of a creative exercise and kind of making like a collage in a way that is then translated into a physical item. And at that point, it's like whatever I'm into. Okay, so we have Denmark and New Zealand in the chat. That is wild to me. And Liverpool. Good job, everybody. I love hearing that there's like people from outside of the US because all the analytics that YouTube provides me all say it's like 99% US based viewers. So I love seeing that there's like people from outside of the country that are like, yeah, I like seeing what you're making. Let's see what else we got. Do you ever figure the ability of the company to afford your talent, small private company versus Universal Studios, for example? Um, and this relates back to pricing your work. I I don't. I think budget is budget, and I I've never felt comfortable with the idea of like this is probably an extreme term for it, but it sort of drives the point home of price gouging people based on their position. Just because someone is rich doesn't mean that I want to charge them more than I would charge a regular person who may not have that kind of money. I will say this, and this is something that Mrs. VanOaks told me, and I think it definitely rings true, is that you want to price something so that when you tell the client what the cost is, that they kind of have to think about it and then get back to you. If they say yes right away, you've probably undercharged them, and there's something that you're probably not thinking about. Um, so keep that in mind. Let's see. Yes, haunted cemetery. Keep doing that stuff. That's the plan, I think. Love what you mentioned about community trying to get into X-Tool laser cutters. Is there anyone in the LA area willing to show me the ropes before the investment? Um, I would say, Travis, check out local maker spaces. There's a handful of them in the LA area, and they're likely to have multiple brands of laser cutters or just in tools in general. And so that might be your best way to see sort of what the landscape is in that particular tool space, and then kind of make a decision based on those experiences. Also, the Los Angeles Public Library has a makerspace that I just had a chance to visit at a recent LA Maker meetup, and that could be a great starting point. Come to New Zealand, I would love to. Absolutely love to. It is on the list of places that my wife and I want to travel. Uh, Bonus points if there's a trip to Weta Workshop in there. Um, yeah, one of my favorite topics lately is hard coding foam. Any plans for videos that include more of this topic or newer methods? I don't think so. Um, it's I weirdly, for as much as I've done videos on Monster Mud and general hard coding of props, my go-to always seems to be dry lock, and I think it's just because it's not as temperamental as doing like the thin set mortar mix with the uh, acrylic polymers and like all of that stuff. Like all of those things work when you do good prep and application. And if you don't live in Southern California where it's, come Mid-year when you're thinking about building props, it's 100 and something degrees, and the material's drying out faster than you can apply it. I think dry lock is just a lot more forgiving, and because no one touches any of the tombstones, and then when Halloween is over, they get stowed away up in the rafters here in the shop. It's it's never been an issue that they are not protected in the same way. Like Monster Mud is definitely a more rigid coating, but not by a ton, and it's still susceptible to moisture and can soften. So you kind of have to go with, I think, what works best for you under the situation that you are in. But all of that said, I don't know that I'll have another video about it, but we are kind of moving towards creating more Halloween content as we're getting closer to Halloween season, and anything is possible. I don't know if it's been asked, do you make props for TV movies based in LA as well as doing commissions? Yes, I do commissions, and I have done work for TV, but very, very limited. But I'm open to it. Let's see. Take another question from the Instagram. Um, who are some of your favorite content creators? Uh, well, it kind of depends. It's a little bit all over the place, but huge fan of the Smugglers Room. Brian and I, after doing a collaboration here on YouTube, have become really good friends. Um, so I love his videos. Um, for general making stuff, Laura Kampf is a favorite. Uh, Simone Yetch is also great. Just you have to appreciate her humor and the unique way she looks at problem solving. Um, who else do I enjoy watching? Let's go to the YouTube and find out. Ordinary Adventures, if you like theme park stuff, Peter and Kitra are wonderful. Um, and great people in person as well. They're in the LA area, and I've run into them a couple times, and they've always been so lovely. Um, who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? It's terrible. You'd think based on the amount of YouTube videos I watch as just a way to see like what other people are up to, and it's so rarely stuff like the things that I make. It's always super random stuff, um, that I would have a better sense of who I enjoy watching. Um, Bob, and I like to make stuff, always great. He really has sort of like paved the way for DIY content and has pivoted a lot over the years, and it's been a great way to sort of watch what he's doing and and get a feel for how someone who's been doing this for twice as long as I have has been able to sort of change and grow with his channel, and has sort of seen the landscape of, YouTube making great money to making not so great money to, whatever. And it's been really interesting to watch how how his channel has progressed. Um, Make with Miles is another great one. Miles has been making videos for a really long time. He started very young. He's in college now, I think, and he does all sorts of stuff, furniture projects, art projects. He's been doing a series of things where he's building furniture for his dorm room that's been absolutely fantastic. Not only from a technical aspect, but also he's just great at making video. His stuff is super chill to watch. Um, it's just like he's very easy to watch on YouTube, and I really enjoy his stuff. Do, 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 do. I'm sure there's others. Oh, SKS Props, he's great. Wesley Treat, I find that a lot of people that I enjoy on YouTube, it's because of their like snarky personality, and Wesley is like right up there. Anyhow, so those are some of my favorites. Sorry that took longer than expected. Let's see. In Liverpool, UK, we have one of the biggest Comic Cons was 2 weeks ago. Some great sets, prop builds. Would love to see you over here one year. I would love to come. Uh, I love visiting the UK. The weather agrees with me, um, and would love to check out all of the conventions just because there's so much amazing art. Like it's crazy to think about how, you know, 15 years ago, cosplay and prop making stuff like that, there were people that did it, but not as many as there are today. And I feel like as like movie companies and television companies are sharing more and more about the making of a lot of these things, that like the cosplay has just elevated because we know so much more about how these things are achieved. And so to go to Comic-Con, to go to Star Wars Celebration, to go to, you know, any of these conventions and see the level of cosplay that people are doing now is just bonkers. Like there are so many people who are so much more talented than me who should be doing this kind of work for movies and TV, but like have a regular 9 to 5 job. Um, so it's really great to see all that stuff. Would you consider coming to Tyler, Texas? Really cool old cemeteries here. I would love to. Also, Tyler, Texas, home of Jamie Foxx. Don't know why I remembered that. Let's see. Who has been my biggest client, if you're allowed to mention them? I can. I made a couple of videos about it. Neil Patrick Harris reached out to me a few years ago, and we worked together on building a replica of the door frames from the Haunted Mansion for a prop in his collection that's actually from the ride. And he's a total sweetheart. And hopefully someday I will get to work with him again. Um, would you consider making a plushie into a soft prop? I would need more information before I would be able to tell you one way or the other. How is it going to be used? Are people going to come into contact with it? How long do you need to use it for? All of these things would be considerations about where I would start. Like if I was to use something that already existed for a base of a prop to then make it into something else. Um, if I did come to Liverpool, I could show you some of the best cemeteries. You would get some great ideas. I love that. I, as weird as it sounds, cannot get enough of visiting cemeteries. They are quiet, reflective places, and I find tombstones to be like living art. It's fantastic. Quick coffee break. Let's see. What's your favorite part of making YouTube videos? The best part about making YouTube videos is the freedom to make whatever I want to make. And so if you appreciate my videos, you can thank Mrs. VanOaks because she works very hard uh, at a real job, at a at a 9 to 5, um, to afford me the opportunity to be working for myself and to making videos and doing commission work and stuff like that. Um, and so, if you've appreciated any of these videos, a lot of that is due in part to her working as hard as she does. Um, that said, my favorite part of making videos is the problem solving. Figuring out, well, I mean, weekly, it's what am I going to make? So that's usually question one. How am I going to make it? out of what materials? Is it going to be something that already exists, something I can buy at a store, something I need to fabricate out of wood or plastic? Is it something I can model and 3D print so that I can be working on something else? So there's like that part of the figuring out. Then there's the logistics these things come from. Who's got the best price? Does it make more sense to spend my time model that I can print so that I can free my time up to be working on another part of the build? Um, and then eventually, when I get into the actual build itself, my favorite part is almost always painting. Um, Assembly is great. The project I'm working on currently, which was something I started 2 weeks ago, but after tweaking my back, it's been kind of slow going. Um, and I'd hoped to have that video out today, but it just didn't work out that way. I started working with something that already existed that I didn't really put a lot of thought into as I was taking it apart. And then when it came time to put it all back together, I'd kind of forgotten the order of operations, which kind of made it a pain in the ass, if I'm being honest. So it was all of that just to get to the part where I was like, okay, now I can do the painting and stuff. So um, the goalpost kind of shifts throughout the project, but generally speaking, I think my favorite part of any project is the figuring it out. Um, and and it's like I never really considered myself much of a student, but as an adult, I find myself just being drawn into learning as much as I can about a particular subject. Um, Not because I'm, you know, so interested in it that I want to continue to make that thing over and over again, but that I just need to know enough to be dangerous. And usually, with that, uncovering of information, there's oftentimes a lot of stuff that gets carried over into another build, and so um, yeah, the figuring it out is always the best part. Do neighbors ever complain about the noise of tools and the odors of paint? No, no, thank God. We're super lucky. So the people that live next to us, um, they are all makers as well. They do LARPing and like Ren Fair and stuff like that, and um, so they always are doing something. They're painting something. They're laser cutting something. So there's always kind of this back and forth, and and also it's great to have them as neighbors because if for some reason I need something and I don't have it on hand, I could always just hop over and be like, "Hey, do you guys have contact cement? Or could you cut this thing on your laser because mine's busy doing something else or whatever." So that's uh, that's pretty great. And the neighbors on the opposite side don't say much. So I'm assuming not. I think generally speaking, the air kind of pushes away from one side and towards the other, so it sort of works out for us. Let's see. What has been the most challenging build you've done that either caused you to walk away or almost walk away? Wow, that is a good question. Um, a few years back, I had acquired a bust from the Haunted Mansion, or a copy of a bust from the Haunted Mansion, and it was just plain resin cast, had not been painted or anything like that. And I tried to paint it, and at that point in time, I hadn't really spent a lot of time with my airbrush, and I thought like, oh, this would be a great opportunity for me to spend more time with the airbrush, and would be a great way to apply paint. And it ended up being a horrible disaster. I actually made a video about it because it turned out so badly that I couldn't actually present it as a DIY or whatever. And I have thought about starting that project again because after that whole debacle, I ended up just going back and base coating the entire piece and to erase all of the nightmare fuel that I created with that airbrush. And uh, and I have it in my office in the house, and I get to look at it all the time. But every time I think about, oh, you know what, maybe this is the week that I try to tackle that build again, I'm always a little reluctant to do so, because the experience was so bad. And granted, this is probably like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Um, Now I feel much more comfortable with the airbrush, uh, but I also don't do a lot of like facial paint related stuff. So I feel like that might be the thing that is holding me back from wanting to go back to doing that again. But it definitely was like, oh, that's bad. I don't know what to do with that. Let's see. Have I gone back to the fog smoke projector screen at all? I haven't. There's been a lot of people who've weighed in on how to make it work. And because I'm making a video a week, uh, it's tough to try and tackle a project like that again. A, because I ended up scavenging a lot of the parts from that build to use for other stuff. And so I basically have to start from scratch again, which is not a terrible thing. But when it's still very much kind of researchy type project, I like to have a conclusion to all the videos. And I think not being able to definitively have an answer at the end of the video, I think is probably no better than the version that I did the first time. And so unless I had like a really specific use case for it, I don't know that I would go back to it. Also, I kind of feel like, and this is the other thing too, this is old technology that other people have figured out to a certain degree. Uh, but I think it has very specific use cases, and what I had intended to use it for, in the end, may not actually really work. Um, when I made the first video, the thought was that the fog would shoot upwards from behind a tombstone so that I could project a ghost like image onto it. And a lot of people said, well, just make the fog fall down. And yes, but no, because I don't want this big apparatus around the tombstone, and because of the size of our yard and all of this sort of stuff, it would get really weird looking very quickly, kind of in the same way that the above ground crypt just felt very out of place because the scale was super weird for our yard. Um, and I think generally speaking, this fog screen thing either works super big or very small. And the way that I wanted to use it was kind of somewhere in between. So I don't know. Never say never, but it's definitely not on a list anywhere, and not something I'm actively thinking about. Still waiting for you to do a video on making mad scientist instrument panels. Halloween is only 27 weeks away. Yeah. Well, and if all goes to plan, this will be our last Halloween here in California. And so mostly what I will be focusing on for this year's Halloween related content is either doing like repairs on stuff, which I know a lot of people don't really talk about. I think most people just go, we'll slap paint on it and it's done. So there's some of our props that desperately need some TLC. So that might be some video, a video this year. Um, I kind of want to talk about overall planning, um, and how to sort of make the most of the space that we have. And and so there's not going to be a lot of, I don't think there will be a lot of new additions. Like I can see up in the rafters here and off to the side on some shelves, like I've got a bit of foam, so I might make a few tombstones or something like that just to use up the foam so that we don't have to think about what to do with it when it comes time to move. Um, but outside of that, I don't see me doing like mad scientist theme. That said, I do take commission work, so if you are interested in maybe having you commission me to do some work, I would be happy to do it. Let's see. Is there anything I can buy that will simulate lightning in a window without programming? Yes. There's a couple different products out there. The one that we've always, well, not always, but for most of the time we've been here used is by a company called Lights Alive, and it's called the Firefly. Um, and it's great. It doesn't require you to have like an audio source to trigger it, or wait, is that right? I take that back. They all work based off of audio signals. So Lights Alive would be sort of the more higher end, but still relatively affordable method. If you can find the old lightning in a box, sometimes they're up on eBay for relatively cheap. And it works the same way. It's just a box. You plug in audio feed on one side and then plug in a light socket on the other. And there's a small adjustment knob. And so when the sound of the thunder goes off, it triggers the light to flash. We still use that. That's actually how I power our haunted radio prop. Um, there's the Perfect Storm, which is, I think, very similar to the lightning in a box. Um, and then they're really hard to find. I made a video a few years back about making your own, which essentially works the same way as those other options. But the component that I used for it is challenging to find. So, but there's, 4 options for you. Let's see. Where are we moving? We are looking at the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Um, let's see. Cool. Let's see if they have any last minute questions here from the Instagram. No, I think we have covered all of the questions. So if anybody has questions, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we are at 47-ish minutes. Um, I'm sure I can fill 15 minutes of rambling. Uh, but yeah, what a weird journey to think that 5 years ago, uh, I was on the hunt for a new job as a graphic artist, which was a career that I'd had for 20 years before that. Um, and uh, and then just by circumstance found myself making videos and managed to kind of make a way at making a living at it. It's strange. It's it's harder than I think people want you to believe. Um, and it's not because of the on camera stuff or coming up with good ideas or things like that. It's all of the behind the scenes stuff. It's the figuring out the business side of things that is the most challenging, particularly as a creative person, because I feel like if you are a creative person, you're probably not an analytical thinker. I know I'm not. And so the business side of things gets murky and feels like you are in the deep end right away. um, but yeah, what a strange, like, I've changed careers a few times in my life, so I'm not a stranger to change by any means. I just didn't think it would be here, and so here we are. Let's see. Ramble on how you would make a haunted mansion office if you didn't have to fill it with desks and printers. What would be the main elements you'd use? Um, if I were to design a haunted mansion office, my favorite part of the haunted mansion has always been the foyer, the entryway. I always thought that the wallpaper in there and the wood paneling, and particularly the wall sconces were just, I don't know. The Haunted Mansion is an interesting ride because it goes from being like, oh, I'm entering a very stately plantation, to uh, jokey in a way, um, and not as serious, or I don't know. There's like an element of humor to it, and so I think uh, it was always the anticipation of going into the stretching room and starting your journey into the Haunted Mansion that I think I always liked the foyer because of that reason. Also, it doesn't hurt that you can go to Bradbury and buy the wallpaper that they use on the ride. Um, so like that's 50% of it right there. I would say some great sconces, some wood trim and paneling, the wallpaper, absolutely the molding on the ceiling and the medallions, a chandelier of some kind. Um, for me, just my personal taste, I wouldn't do the purple bluish wallpaper with the faces in it. It's just not. I don't know. That is like one of the elements that's like kind of jokey about the Haunted Mansion. Um, that like on its at face value, it's fine. It's like iconic. But I think if I had to look at it every day, I don't know. It, it just feels a little too jokey to me. Does that make any sense? Um, so I think I would do that. I would find a great wingback chair to recreate the. I know a lot of people refer to it as like the Donald Duck chair. Um, that in the Disneyland Resort version is just off to the left of the endless hallway. Um, there's also a version of it in the ballroom, just as you come out of the attic, or sorry, just as you come out of Madame Leota's parlor, to the far right of the ballroom by the fireplace. There's a grandmotherly type figure in a rocking chair. That's another sort of instance of the Donald Duck chair. I would do something like that. Um, if I was going to do a desk, it would be something old and wood and very like stately looking with some interesting legs and carvings and stuff like that. It's not as difficult, I think, to do something that doesn't necessarily read as um, a theme park attraction, but just reads as like creepy and old, but with a nod to an attraction. I think that's why I wanted to build the window cornice and do the draperies and all of that. It's like it's more of that, like if you know, you know, than to be like Haunted Mansion. I don't know. There's just a subtlety to something like that, and I think because it would be a thing you'd see all the time. If it were too over the top, it might get a little bit much, at least for me. How much time do you spend researching different years and locations? Meaning, is this a Liverpool gravestone or a Boston gravestone? And what year is this? What do you research? I mean, oftentimes I will just look at old, um, like photographs of old cemeteries, like, just Google search old cemetery or 1800 cemetery, 1700 cemetery. Um, Highgate in London is probably my favorite to go to because it's big and it's really overgrown, and there's such a variety of statuary and headstones and monuments and whatnot. So uh, it's a great place to get a little bit of everything. It's like the Costco of cemeteries. Um, I don't really get into the weeds too much about the years of things because I know that the aesthetic that we've already developed for our haunt will carry over into whatever I make. So, I'm not making a new tombstone for someone that died recently. It's always going to be somebody that died a long time ago, um, because I just find all of that aging, weathering, degradation visually more interesting, and helps paint a clearer picture for people who are coming to visit our display to kind of put them in the right mood. If everything was new and shiny and clean and whatever, I think it would evoke a very different feeling. So that's kind of what I'm looking at when I'm doing any sort of research. Oftentimes, because I'm doing one-offs, I will just research until I feel like I've gotten the enough information. That could be 10 minutes. It could be 10 minutes over the course of a few days where I'm doing, a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. Um, Sometimes it could be months, but I'm not actively doing it like nonstop 24 hours a day. It's just, it's either like I either see it or I don't see it, and then I move on. Have I ever used low laying fog in your display? Any tips? I have not. We have terrible breezes that causes the fog to immediately leave our property, and then it ends up out in the middle of the street, and that just becomes a huge traffic risk for us. So, excuse me. So we sold off all of our fog machines a couple of years ago, and and I've just never had good luck with it. There's definitely a handful of um, people online who've created really good low-lying foggers. It uses like a combination of uh, methods that I think produces the most impressive low-lying fog. Um, but it's also a lot of work for something that for many of us is only like a couple of days out of the year, and then you have to store all that stuff. So it's tough. But I unfortunately don't have um, any tips. Um, let's see. All right, we're a couple minutes out. Thank you to all of you for joining me this morning on the 5th anniversary of my YouTube weekly videos. It's cool to be here. Like, I I never thought that I would find myself in a position where I had a creative job where I got to dictate every decision that I get to make. Um, and and a lot of that is because of the support of you guys. And so thank you all for coming along with me on the ride, for being encouraging at times when it felt a little difficult. And um, and I look forward to whatever the future brings. Hopefully, uh, I don't know. Halloween is always an interesting time as we get closer to it. The views start to go up. There, more people show up for the chat in the premieres every Saturday. Um, new people join our community of makers, and I think it's super cool that the stuff that I make in some way inspires you guys to go and make some stuff of your own, um, to further uh, your enjoyment of whatever your hobby is, whether it's Halloween or just general prop making or Star Wars or whatever. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of the support, and for people that are sharing videos, and my patrons. Um, yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I will see you guys next week with a new video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I had to reboot the end phrase here. Um, and most importantly, go make something. I'll see you guys.